Today was supposed to be special, my 67th birthday. I woke up in the small guest room that had become my permanent residence since moving in with my son, Michael, and his wife, Jessica, 2 years ago. The morning light filtered through the thin curtains, and for a moment, I allowed myself to hope that maybe, just maybe, they remembered. I had given up my own home to help them. When Michael called me 3 years ago, his voice breaking with desperation, I didn't hesitate. "Mom, we're about to lose the house. The bank is foreclosing. I don't know what to do." Without a second thought, I sold the little cottage where I'd lived for 30 years, the same cottage where I'd raised Michael as a single mother after his father left us when he was just 5, $150,000. That's what my cottage was worth, and that's exactly what I handed over to save their dream home. "It's just temporary, Mom," Michael had promised, his eyes wet with tears. "Just until we get back on our feet. You'll always have a place with us." I believed him. I believed in family. I believed that the woman my son chose to marry would eventually see me as more than an inconvenience. For 15 years before that, I had poured everything into raising Michael, working double shifts at the diner to pay for his college, staying up nights to help him with homework, cheering from the bleachers at every football game even when my feet ached from standing all day. When he graduated and got his first job, when he met Jessica, when they got engaged, I was there for every milestone, beaming with pride. "You raised a good man," Jessica had said to me at their wedding, squeezing my hand. "Thank you for sharing him with me." I thought we understood each other then. I thought she meant it. The first year living with them wasn't perfect, but it was manageable. I cooked dinner most nights. Jessica worked late at the marketing firm, and Michael appreciated coming home to a hot meal. I helped with the household chores, watched their dog Max when they went on weekend trips, and tried to make myself useful without being intrusive. But something shifted after that first year. Jessica's smiles became forced. The good mornings turned into barely audible grunts. When I offered to cook, she'd say they were ordering takeout. When I tried to join conversations, she'd find reasons to leave the room. "Give her time," Michael would say when I gently mentioned the growing tension. "She's under a lot of stress at work. You know how it is." I did know. I had worked my entire life, juggled responsibilities, dealt with stress. But I had never taken it out on family, never treated someone with the cold indifference that had become Jessica's default mode toward me. This morning, I shuffled to the kitchen, hoping to find some acknowledgement of my birthday. Maybe a card on the counter, or even just a happy birthday from Jessica, as she rushed out the door with her coffee. Instead, I found her standing by the kitchen island, scrolling through her phone, already dressed for work in her sharp navy suit. "Good morning, Jessica," I said softly, moving toward the coffee maker. She didn't look up. "We need to talk." My heart sank. Those 4 words never led anywhere good. I poured my coffee with shaking hands, the ceramic mug suddenly feeling impossibly heavy. "Okay," I managed. Jessica finally lifted her eyes from her phone, and the coldness in them made me take a step back. This wasn't the stressed, overworked woman Michael made excuses for. This was something else entirely. "You're just a burden now," she said, her voice flat and matter-of-fact, as if she were commenting on the weather. "Michael won't say it, but I will. This arrangement isn't working anymore." The words hit me like a physical blow. I set my coffee down before I could drop it. I don't understand. Have I done something wrong?" "You exist," she said simply. "You're always here, always underfoot, always interfering with our lives. We can't have friends over because you'll want to join the conversation. We can't have intimate dinners because you'll be lurking around the kitchen. We can't even argue in private because you're always listening." I never meant to. I don't care what you meant. Jessica's voice cut through my attempt at explanation like a blade. What matters is what you are, and what you are is a problem that needs solving. I felt tears threatening, but I refused to give her the satisfaction of seeing me cry. "Where would you like me to go?" Something flickered across her face. Was it satisfaction? Actually, that's not today's concern. Today, Michael and I are celebrating our anniversary. We're having a special dinner here and we need privacy, complete privacy. Of course, I said quickly. I can go to the library. Maybe visit... No. Her smile was sharp, predatory. You'll be staying in the basement all day. The basement. The cold, unfinished basement that smelled of mildew and contained nothing but storage boxes and a broken exercise bike. Jessica, I don't think... I'm not asking what you think. She moved toward the basement door, and I noticed for the first time that she was holding a key. Michael agrees, by the way. He said you've overstayed your welcome. My son. My Michael. The boy I had sacrificed everything for, who had never wanted for anything because I made sure of it. He had agreed to this? When did he say that? I whispered. Last night, after you went to bed. We had a long conversation about boundaries and what's best for our marriage. Jessica opened the basement door, the darkness below seeming to swallow the light from the kitchen. He realizes now that having you here is preventing us from building our own life together. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This had to be a misunderstanding. Michael would never, he couldn't. Get down there, Jessica said, her voice now carrying an edge of impatience. I have things to prepare for tonight, and I can't do that with you wandering around making noise. Jessica, please, it's my birthday. She laughed. Actually laughed. I know exactly what day it is, Margaret. What better day to start fresh? With trembling legs, I walked toward the basement stairs. Each step down felt like descending into a grave. The basement was exactly as cold and unwelcoming as I remembered from the few times I'd ventured down to retrieve holiday decorations. Concrete walls, bare bulb hanging from the ceiling, the perpetual smell of dampness that no amount of dehumidifying could eliminate. Jessica, I called up from the bottom of the stairs, my voice echoing off the walls. How long? The door slammed shut above me. I heard the distinct sound of a key turning in the lock. I stood there in the dim light, trying to process what had just happened. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be my life. I was a human being, not a piece of furniture to be stored away when inconvenient. I climbed back up the stairs and tried the door handle, locked tight. I knocked gently at first, then more insistently. Jessica, I need to use the bathroom. Silence. Jessica, please. I'm sorry if I've been in the way. We can talk about this. Nothing. I pressed my ear to the door and heard the faint sound of Jessica's heels clicking across the kitchen floor above me. She was going about her morning routine as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't just locked a 67-year-old woman in a basement like a misbehaving child. The minutes crawled by. I tried to stay calm, to think rationally. Surely this was temporary. Surely Michael would come home for lunch and discover what had happened. He would be horrified. He would apologize profusely and have a serious conversation with his wife about boundaries and basic human decency. But as the morning stretched into afternoon, that hope began to fade. I heard Jessica's car pull out of the driveway around 9 a.m. Then silence. Complete, absolute silence. I found myself sitting on the bottom step, staring at the concrete floor. The basement had no windows, no natural light except for what filtered down through the crack under the door. The single bulb cast harsh shadows that seemed to move and shift when I wasn't looking directly at them. This is when the memories started flooding back. All the little moments I had dismissed or rationalized away. Jessica's eye rolls when I spoke at dinner, the way she would physically position herself so her back was to me during conversations. How she would leave rooms immediately after I entered them. The time I overheard her on the phone with her sister saying something about Michael's baggage that came with the house. I'd been so desperate to believe that we could be a family that I had ignored every sign that Jessica saw me as nothing more than an unwanted inheritance from her husband's past. The cold was seeping through my thin robe and nightgown. I hadn't been allowed to dress, Hadn't been given time to grab a sweater or shoes. My slippers provided no insulation against the concrete floor, and I could feel the chill working its way up through my bones. Hours passed. The silence above was occasionally broken by what sounded like delivery trucks, probably Jessica arranging for their special anniversary dinner. The irony wasn't lost on me. While I sat locked in their basement like a prisoner, she was preparing for a romantic evening to celebrate their love. Around what I estimated to be 2 p.m., I heard voices upstairs. Multiple voices. Laughter, music starting to play. My heart lifted for just a moment. Maybe Michael had come home early with friends. Maybe someone would ask where I was. Maybe this nightmare would finally end. But as I listened more carefully, I realized the voices were all women. Jessica was having some kind of party or gathering, and from the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses, they were having a wonderful time. Then I heard it. Jessica's voice, louder than the others, clearly audible through the thin basement ceiling. "Trust me, girls. This is the most peaceful afternoon I've had in months. No interruptions, no unwanted commentary, no awkward presence hovering around trying to insert herself into conversations." More laughter. "Where is she?" one of the other women asked. "Oh, I told her we needed privacy for our anniversary preparation. She's out for the day." The casual lie, delivered so smoothly, so confidently. I pressed my hands to my mouth to keep from crying out. These women had no idea that I was trapped just below their feet, that Jessica's peaceful afternoon had come at the cost of my dignity and freedom. "You're so lucky to have that kind of boundary with her," another voice said. "My mother-in-law would never accept being told to make herself scarce." "It's all about training," Jessica replied, and I could hear the satisfaction in her voice. "You have to be firm from the beginning. They're like children. Give them an inch, and they'll take everything." They laughed again, and the sound felt like nails on a chalkboard. I was being discussed like a misbehaving pet, not a human being who had given everything to make their comfortable life possible. The afternoon wore on. The party above eventually dispersed, cars pulling away, voices fading. Jessica was alone again, and I could hear her moving around, probably cleaning up and preparing for Michael's return. The basement grew colder as the day progressed. I had wrapped my arms around myself, trying to conserve body heat, but the chill was relentless. My stomach was empty. I hadn't eaten breakfast before being locked down here, and the gnawing hunger was becoming impossible to ignore. But more than the physical discomfort was the emotional devastation. Every assumption I had made about my place in this family, every hope I had harbored about being valued and loved, was crumbling around me like the flaking paint on the basement walls. I thought about the cottage I had sold, the garden I had tended for decades, the neighbors who had become friends over the years, the independence I had given up because I believed family was more important than anything else. What a fool I had been. As darkness began to fall outside, I could tell because the thin line of light under the door had disappeared. I heard Michael's car in the driveway. My heart hammered with a mixture of hope and dread. Would he ask about me? Would he wonder where I was? Or had Jessica's lie about me being out for the day been coordinated with him? I heard the front door open, heard Michael's voice calling out, "Honey, I'm home," in that cheerful tone that used to warm my heart. Now it just made me feel sick. "Perfect timing," Jessica replied, her voice bright and loving in a way it never was when she spoke to me. "Everything's ready for our special evening." "This smells incredible," Michael said. "You've outdone yourself." I had all day to prepare, no distractions whatsoever. No distractions. That's what I was now, a distraction to be locked away when inconvenient. I waited for him to ask about me, waited for some sign that my absence had been noticed, that I mattered enough to warrant even a casual inquiry about my whereabouts. The waiting stretched on. I heard them laughing together, heard the clink of wine glasses, heard soft music playing. They were having their perfect anniversary dinner directly above me while I sat in the cold darkness, forgotten and discarded. It was then, sitting on that concrete floor with hunger gnawing at my stomach and cold seeping into my bones, that I finally understood the truth. I wasn't family to them. I wasn't even a person, really. I was an obligation that Michael felt guilty about abandoning and that Jessica resented having to tolerate. The woman who had raised their son, who had sacrificed her home and her independence to save theirs, who had cooked their meals and cleaned their house and asked for nothing in return except basic human dignity. That woman didn't matter enough to be remembered on her own birthday. But as I sat there in the darkness, something began to shift inside me. The hurt and confusion were still there, but underneath them, something else was growing. Something harder, more determined. I didn't deserve this. No one deserved this. And maybe, just maybe, it was time they learned that lesson. That's when I remembered my phone. In all the shock and confusion of being marched down to the basement, I had completely forgotten about the small smartphone tucked into the pocket of my robe. My fingers found it now, the familiar weight both comforting and empowering in the darkness. The screen lit up, showing 8:47 p.m. and several missed messages. My heart nearly stopped when I saw the most recent one, sent just 20 minutes ago. "Mom, where are you? Jessica said you went to visit Aunt Helen, but Helen called looking for you. Are you okay?" Michael. My son was looking for me. He didn't know. Whatever Jessica had told him, it wasn't the truth about me being locked in their basement like a criminal. I stared at that message for a long moment, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Every instinct screamed at me to type back immediately, to tell him where I was, to beg him to come downstairs and free me from this nightmare. But then I heard Jessica's voice floating down from above, and I froze. "Oh, that's probably your mom texting you," she said, her tone casual and unconcerned. "I told her we needed space tonight, but you know how she is. She probably forgot something and wants to come back." "She said she was going to Helen's," Michael replied, and I could hear the confusion in his voice. "Well, maybe she changed her mind. You know how scattered she's been getting lately. Age catches up with everyone. Age catches up with everyone. As if my being 67 was somehow evidence of diminished capacity, rather than a testament to a life fully lived. As if my occasional forgetfulness, normal for anyone under stress, was proof that I couldn't be trusted to manage my own affairs. I listened as Jessica smoothly redirected the conversation back to their anniversary celebration, and Michael's concerns about my whereabouts seemed to fade. But something crystallized in that moment, sitting in the dark with my phone glowing in my hands. This wasn't just about tonight. This wasn't just about being locked in a basement on my birthday. This was about a pattern of manipulation and control that had been building for months, maybe longer. Jessica hadn't just impulsively decided to lock me away. She'd been laying the groundwork, planting seeds of doubt about my mental state, positioning herself as the reasonable one dealing with a difficult situation. I thought about all the times she had made subtle comments about my confusion when I would mention conversations I was sure we'd had, the way she would exchange meaningful looks with Michael when I would ask about household decisions that affected me, how she had gradually taken over more and more aspects of the house management, always with the explanation that it was easier if she handled things herself. I had been so grateful for their generosity in letting me stay, so determined not to be a burden, that I had allowed myself to be slowly erased from my own life. But Jessica had made one crucial mistake tonight. She thought she had all the power, all the control. She thought I was just a helpless old woman with no resources and no options. She had no idea that I still had my phone. And more importantly, she had no idea that I was done being anyone's victim. Instead of texting Michael back immediately, I opened my camera app and started recording. The basement was dimly lit, but my phone's camera adjusted, showing the stark concrete walls, the locked door at the top of the stairs, and most importantly, me, disheveled, cold, and clearly imprisoned against my will. "My name is Margaret Wilson," I said quietly to the camera, my voice steadier than I felt. It's my 67th birthday, and I am currently locked in the basement of my son's house by my daughter-in-law, Jessica. She told me this morning that I was a burden and that they needed privacy for their anniversary dinner. She has told my son that I'm visiting my sister-in-law, but as you can see, I'm actually being held prisoner in their basement. I moved the camera around, showing the locked door, the cold concrete floor where I'd been sitting for hours, the single bare bulb that provided the only light. I've been down here since approximately 8:30 this morning without food, water, or access to a bathroom. My daughter-in-law is currently entertaining my son upstairs, and neither of them seems concerned about my well-being or whereabouts. I stopped recording and saved the video to my phone. Evidence. Proof of what was happening to me that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. Then I did something that surprised even me. I started recording again, but this time I held the phone up toward the ceiling, trying to catch the sounds from upstairs. Jessica's laughter rang out clearly, followed by Michael's voice saying something I couldn't quite make out. "As you can hear," I whispered to the camera, "they are having a wonderful time directly above me while I sit locked in their basement." I was about to stop recording when Jessica's voice came through loud and clear. She was talking on the phone, probably stepping away from Michael to take a call. "No, tonight's been perfect," she was saying, clearly talking to someone else. "I finally got some peace and quiet around here. Had to put my foot down about boundaries, you know. Sometimes you have to treat them like children, firm but fair." My blood ran cold. She was talking about me to someone else, bragging about what she had done. "Trust me, she needed to learn her place," Jessica continued, her voice getting closer to what must be the kitchen phone. "Michael's too soft with her, but I'm not. I told her exactly how things were going to be from now on, and she finally got the message." I kept recording, my hands shaking with a mixture of rage and vindication. She was confessing, actually confessing to someone about her treatment of me, and she sounded proud of it. "Oh, she'll be fine," Jessica laughed in response to something the other person said. "She's tougher than she looks, and honestly, it's about time she learned that this is our house, not hers. Just because she helped with the down payment doesn't mean she gets to act like she owns the place." Helped with the down payment. I had given them $150,000. My entire life savings, the proceeds from selling my home, and she characterized it as helping with the down payment. "Exactly," Jessica was saying. "Michael feels guilty because she raised him, but that doesn't mean we owe her anything now. She made her choices, and now she has to live with the consequences." I stopped recording, my heart pounding so hard I was sure it would be audible upstairs. This was it. This was everything I needed, not just evidence of tonight's imprisonment, but clear proof of Jessica's attitude toward me, her manipulation of the situation, and her complete lack of remorse for her actions. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I opened my contacts and scrolled to a number I hadn't called in years. My lawyer, David Chen, who had handled the sale of my cottage and helped me navigate the financial arrangements with Michael and Jessica. David had expressed concerns at the time about the lack of formal documentation protecting my interests, but I had dismissed his worries. Family didn't need contracts, I had told him. Family took care of each other. How naive I had been. It was after 9 p.m., but David had always told his elderly clients to call him any time if they felt unsafe or taken advantage of. I hesitated for only a moment before dialing his number. "Margaret." His voice was surprised but alert. "Is everything all right?" "David, I need help," I whispered, keeping my voice low enough that it wouldn't carry upstairs. "I'm in a situation and I need to know my legal options." I told him everything. The locked basement, Jessica's lies to Michael, the recorded confession I had just captured. David listened without interrupting, and I could hear him taking notes. "Margaret, what you're describing is elder abuse," he said when I finished. "Unlawful imprisonment, financial exploitation, emotional abuse. This is serious criminal behavior. What can I do? First, are you in immediate physical danger? I don't think so, but I've been locked down here for over 12 hours without food or water. That's enough for an emergency response. I'm going to call Adult Protective Services right now, and I want you to call 911. This needs to be documented officially. But Michael doesn't know, I protested. He thinks I'm at Helen's. This is going to destroy him. Margaret, listen to me carefully. Your son is an adult, and his wife is committing crimes against you. His feelings, while important, cannot be your primary concern right now. You need to protect yourself. David was right, but the thought of Michael's face when he discovered the truth made my stomach clench. He would be devastated. He would blame himself for not knowing, for not protecting me. But then I heard Jessica's laughter again from upstairs, careless and bright, and my resolve hardened. She had counted on my love for Michael to keep me silent and compliant. She had weaponized my desire to keep the family together against me. Not anymore. What do I need to do? I asked David. Call 911 first. Tell them you're being held against your will and request both police and emergency medical services. Being locked in a basement for 12 hours at your age could have serious health consequences. Then call me back. I'll meet you at the hospital or police station, wherever they take you. David, there's something else. I gave them $150,000 when I moved in. There was no formal agreement, but we'll deal with that too. That money was supposed to secure your housing, and they're clearly violating that agreement. We have options. After hanging up with David, I sat in the darkness for a moment, phone in hand. Once I made this call, there would be no going back. This would explode into a legal matter, a family crisis, a public scandal. Michael would have to choose between his wife and his mother, and there was no guarantee which way that choice would go. But as I thought about spending another night locked in this basement, about Jessica's satisfied laughter as she bragged about putting me in my place, about the months of subtle cruelty and manipulation I had endured in silence, I knew I had no choice. I dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? My name is Margaret Wilson, and I'm being held against my will in a basement. I need police and medical assistance. The dispatcher was professional and calm, asking for my location and details about the situation. I gave her the address and explained that I was locked in the basement of my son's house by my daughter-in-law. Ma'am, how long have you been locked in the basement? Since about 8:30 this morning, almost 13 hours. Are you injured? I'm cold and weak from not eating, but not seriously injured. We're dispatching units to your location now. Are you in immediate danger? I don't think so. The people upstairs don't know I have a phone. As I was speaking to the dispatcher, I heard a car pull into the driveway upstairs. Then another, voices in the front yard. Jessica's surprised exclamation. Ma'am, I think the police are here, I told the dispatcher. Stay on the line until officers make contact with you. I could hear commotion upstairs now. Heavy footsteps, multiple voices, Jessica's high-pitched protests, Michael's confused questions. I don't understand, I heard him saying. My mother isn't even here. She's visiting family. Sir, we received a 911 call from this address. Someone reported being held against their will in your basement. That's impossible. There's no one in our basement. Then you won't mind if we check. I heard footsteps approaching the basement door. Then Jessica's voice, strained and panicky now. Wait, you can't just search our house without a warrant. Ma'am, this is a welfare check in response to an emergency call. We have every right to ensure no one is in danger. The key turned in the lock above me, and light flooded down the stairs. A police officer appeared at the top, flashlight in hand. Mrs. Wilson, I'm here, I called up, my voice cracking with relief and exhaustion. 2 officers came down the stairs, followed by paramedics. Behind them, I could see Michael's face, white with shock and disbelief. Jessica was nowhere to be seen. Ma'am, are you hurt? The first officer asked, kneeling beside me on the concrete floor. I'm very cold and weak. I haven't eaten since yesterday evening. The paramedic immediately began checking my vital signs, while the officers documented the scene. One of them was taking photos of the locked door, the concrete floor, the obvious signs that someone had been confined down here for an extended period. "Mrs. Wilson, can you tell us what happened?" the senior officer asked. I told them everything. From Jessica's cold announcement this morning to her phone conversation I had recorded just an hour ago. I showed them the videos on my phone, played the audio of Jessica bragging about putting me in my place. Michael appeared at the bottom of the stairs, his face a mask of horror and confusion. "Mom, I don't understand. Jessica told me you went to Helen's. She said you wanted space for the day." Looking at my son, my boy who I had raised and sacrificed for and loved more than my own life, I felt my heart break all over again. Not for what Jessica had done to me, but for what she had done to him. She had made him complicit in my abuse through lies and manipulation. "I never went to Helen's, sweetheart," I said softly. "I've been locked down here all day." The officers were leading me upstairs now, the paramedics insisting I needed to be checked at the hospital. As we emerged into the kitchen, I saw Jessica for the first time since this morning. She was standing near the front door, her face pale and her hands shaking. When our eyes met, I saw something flicker across her expression. Not remorse, not shame, but calculation. She was already working on her next lie, her next manipulation. But it was too late. The evidence was documented. The crime was recorded. And for the first time in 2 years, I was no longer under her control. "Mrs. Wilson," the senior officer said, "we're going to take you to the hospital to be checked out, and then we'll need a formal statement. Do you have somewhere safe you can stay tonight?" I thought about that question as they helped me into the ambulance. For the first time in years, I realized I could go anywhere I wanted. I could make my own decisions about my own life. Jessica had tried to make me disappear, to reduce me to nothing more than an inconvenience to be managed and controlled. But in her arrogance and cruelty, she'd given me something I thought I'd lost forever. She had given me back my voice, and I intended to use it.